My mother-in-law yelled at me, saying I not only make our Sunday chores and take care of him, but now I'm trying to get our money too. She called me lazy and said I only bring in $700. I felt scared as she pointed a knife at me. It hurt my feelings a lot. I was doing all the work and looking after the kids because my husband didn't have a job. I couldn't take it anymore. I left everything and took my child to my parents' house. My name is Emily. I'm 23 years old, and I live with my husband, our child, and my mother-in-law. My husband Richard was popular in high school. He was good at soccer and was the student president. Everyone admired him. He came back to our town after getting a job and asked me out. We started dating seriously after a few dates. Even as an adult, he was still the handsome, impressive guy I fell for. After I finished vocational school, I found out I was pregnant. It was a bit unexpected, but I thought I could have a happy life with my child and Richard. But things got tough when we talked about life after getting married. Why don't we move into my parents' house after we get married? Richard suggested. But I want it to be just us three with our child, I replied. But won't it be expensive to live on our own? He asked. If we stay with my parents, we won't have to worry much about money. And if we both work, we can afford our own place, right? I reasoned. Well, about that. My income this month isn't great, Richard admitted. How bad is it? I asked. It's less than $11,000, he confessed. What? Why is it so low? You told me you were working at an egg company, I exclaimed. I quit that job. Now I'm making money at the casino and doing part-time work, he explained. At a casino? Why would you do that? I questioned. After just 1 month, he quit his job. If you're okay with paying for everything, we can live in an apartment, he said casually. His lack of enthusiasm made me worried. Was I the only one excited about our new life? Seeing my concern, he gripped my hands tightly. It's just temporary until I find a new job. I'll make you happy, Emily. I'll take care of all the chores and our child until then. Believing his promise, we got married and moved into his parents' house. After giving birth safely, I was determined to work hard for our son. Both Richard and my mother-in-law seemed happy, and I looked forward to our future together. But even after our son was born, Richard didn't help with chores or taking care of our child. Instead, he spent his days at the casino. After going to the casino again, what about helping with the chores and taking care of our child? I asked, reminding him of his promise. Don't tell me what to do. Richard suddenly shouted back at me. Confused by his outburst, my mother-in-law came into the room, having heard the argument. What's going on here? She asked. I'm busy with work, and she's asking me to help with chores and taking care of the child, Richard explained. What? That's the wife's job, my mother-in-law exclaimed. Richard hadn't told his mother about quitting his job. Instead, he painted me as the bad wife who forced him to do all the housework and take care of our child. His lies turned my mother-in-law against me, making her resentful. Richard kept going to his part-time job and the casino, where he often lost the little money he earned. I ended up paying most of our expenses, making our life tough since I wasn't working. Eventually, I had to go back to work, leaving our son at a child care center. Luckily, I found a job as a dental hygienist pretty quickly. But when I came home from work every day, my mother-in-law would yell at me. What do you think you're doing? This isn't playtime. You're a parent, but all you do is fool around. Make dinner now. She slammed the newspaper she was reading onto the floor in frustration. Sometimes she'd even break plates when she was really angry. My mother-in-law was unpredictable. Her mood could change in an instant. I was afraid of what she might do next, so I just went along with it. But between taking care of my son, working, and doing housework every day, I was exhausted. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to talk to Richard one more time. I caught him before he left for the casino early in the morning. "Listen, I've reached my limit. Can't you help out with our son a little?" "What?" "Like I said, I'm busy. I'm trying to find a new job." "You get that, right?" "Right. Do you want me to stay jobless forever? You'd be in trouble then, wouldn't you? Your child's father unemployed. If you don't like it, just do what you're told," Richard retorted. "But we're barely making ends meet. I'm using up all my savings to cover our food expenses. Do you even know how expensive diapers are? You say you're making money at the casino, but we never see any of it," I argued. Most of our living expenses were covered by my money. My mother-in-law used to pay for utilities, but now she wanted $500 a month from us, so I had to dip into my savings. Even the food costs were eating away at my savings, and I was running out of money fast. All I had left was what I earned from a part-time job I had while I was in school. "That's enough. How dare you talk back to me? You've got a lot of nerve saying those things after moving into my house." Richard, who was usually kind, changed completely when it came to money or the casino. Hearing Richard shouting, my mother-in-law came into the room. "What's going on now? Is your wife complaining again?" she asked. "Yeah, she is. She's telling me to do housework and take care of our child, and she wants me to help with the living expenses. Can you believe her audacity, Mother? Anyway, I'm off to work now," Richard said as he left. Once he was gone, my mother-in-law's expression turned sharp. "You've got some nerve expecting us to take care of your child and do the housework while demanding money from us. You should be ashamed." "It's not like that. I'm not making demands. Life is just really tough without a little help," I tried to explain. "You must be wasting money. Aren't you careless with finances?" my mother-in-law accused. She didn't understand the situation at all. She didn't know that her own son was unemployed and spending all his time at the casino. My mother-in-law yelled at me, saying I not only make our Sunday chores and take care of him, but now I'm trying to get our money too. She called me lazy and said I only bring in $700. I felt scared as she pointed a knife at me. It hurt my feelings a lot. I was doing all the work and looking after the kids because my husband didn't have a job. I couldn't take it anymore. I left everything and took my child to my parents' house. My name is Emily. I'm 23 years old, and I live with my husband, our child, and my mother-in-law. My husband Richard was popular in high school. He was good at soccer and was the student president. Everyone admired him. He came back to our town after getting a job and asked me out. We started dating seriously after a few dates. Even as an adult, he was still the handsome, impressive guy I fell for. After I finished vocational school, I found out I was pregnant. It was a bit unexpected, but I thought I could have a happy life with my child and Richard. But things got tough when we talked about life after getting married. "Why don't we move into my parents' house after we get married?" Richard suggested. "But I want it to be just us three with our child," I replied. "But won't it be expensive to live on our own?" he asked. "If we stay with my parents, we won't have to worry much about money. And if we both work, we can afford our own place, right?" I reasoned. "Well, about that. My income this month isn't great," Richard admitted. "How bad is it?" I asked. "It's less than $11,000, he confessed. "What? Why is it so low?" "You told me you were working at an egg company," I exclaimed. "I quit that job. Now I'm making money at the casino and doing part-time work," he explained. At a casino? Why would you do that? I questioned. After just 1 month, he quit his job. If you're okay with paying for everything, we can live in an apartment, he said casually. His lack of enthusiasm made me worried. Was I the only one excited about our new life? Seeing my concern, he gripped my hands tightly. It's just temporary until I find a new job. I'll make you happy, Emily. I'll take care of all the chores and our child until then. Believing his promise, we got married and moved into his parents' house. After giving birth safely, I was determined to work hard for our son. Both Richard and my mother-in-law seemed happy, and I looked forward to our future together. But even after our son was born, Richard didn't help with chores or taking care of our child. Instead, he spent his days at the casino. After going to the casino again, what about helping with the chores and taking care of our child? I asked, reminding him of his promise. Don't tell me what to do. Richard suddenly shouted back at me. Confused by his outburst, my mother-in-law came into the room, having heard the argument. What's going on here? She asked. I'm busy with work, and she's asking me to help with chores and taking care of the child, Richard explained. What? That's the wife's job, my mother-in-law exclaimed. Richard hadn't told his mother about quitting his job. Instead, he painted me as the bad wife who forced him to do all the housework and take care of our child. His lies turned my mother-in-law against me, making her resentful. Richard kept going to his part-time job and the casino, where he often lost the little money he earned. I ended up paying most of our expenses, making our life tough since I wasn't working. Eventually, I had to go back to work, leaving our son at a child care center. Luckily, I found a job as a dental hygienist pretty quickly. But when I came home from work every day, my mother-in-law would yell at me. What do you think you're doing? This isn't playtime. You're a parent, but all you do is fool around. Make dinner now. She slammed the newspaper she was reading onto the floor in frustration. Sometimes she'd even break plates when she was really angry. My mother-in-law was unpredictable. Her mood could change in an instant. I was afraid of what she might do next, so I just went along with it. But between taking care of my son, working, and doing housework every day, I was exhausted. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to talk to Richard one more time. I caught him before he left for the casino early in the morning. Listen, I've reached my limit. Can't you help out with our son a little? What? Like I said, I'm busy. I'm trying to find a new job. You get that, right? Right. Do you want me to stay jobless forever? You'd be in trouble then, wouldn't you? Your child's father unemployed. If you don't like it, just do what you're told, Richard retorted. But we're barely making ends meet. I'm using up all my savings to cover our food expenses. Do you even know how expensive diapers are? You say you're making money at the casino, but we never see any of it, I argued. Most of our living expenses were covered by my money. My mother-in-law used to pay for utilities, but now she wanted $500 a month from us, so I had to dip into my savings. Even the food costs were eating away at my savings, and I was running out of money fast. All I had left was what I earned from a part-time job I had while I was in school. That's enough. How dare you talk back to me? You've got a lot of nerve saying those things after moving into my house. Richard, who was usually kind, changed completely when it came to money or the casino. Hearing Richard shouting, my mother-in-law came into the room. What's going on now? Is your wife complaining again? She asked. Yeah, she is. She's telling me to do housework and take care of our child. And she wants me to help with the living expenses. Can you believe her audacity, Mother? Anyway, I'm off to work now, Richard said as he left. Once he was gone, my mother-in-law's expression turned sharp. You've got some nerve expecting us to take care of your child and do the housework while demanding money from us. You should be ashamed. It's not like that. I'm not making demands. Life is just really tough without a little help, I tried to explain. You must be wasting money. Aren't you careless with finances? My mother-in-law accused. She didn't understand the situation at all. She didn't know that her own son was unemployed and spending all his time at the casino. I was told to keep quiet, but I couldn't hold back anymore. Do you know that Richard isn't earning anything? He's unemployed because he quit his job. Why are you saying that? Richard has always been successful. Sure, he didn't pass his college entrance exams, but he got a job at a reputable company, my mother-in-law insisted. He quit that job after just a month. Now he's always at the casino. I can't manage on my savings alone. It's not fair, I pleaded. Don't talk nonsense. My mother-in-law refused to believe me. Her son, who had always been successful in sports and studies, was her pride and joy. She couldn't accept that he was now unemployed and wasting his time at the casino. Her face turned red with anger, and she stormed out of the room. When she returned, to my horror, she was holding a knife. What are you going to do? Please stop. I stepped back, holding my son close. My mother-in-law advanced towards me, knife raised. I'm tired of your insults towards my son. How a wife like you is ruining Richard. You're a lazy parasite, living off a measly $700. Get out of this house. Her harsh words made me break into a cold sweat. I feared for my son's safety. Seeing my fear, my mother-in-law seemed satisfied and lowered the knife. Good, you understand. We don't want parasites like you here. Just stay quiet and do your chores, she said before leaving the room. Feeling the tension lift, I collapsed to the ground. My son started to cry, sensing something was wrong. I held him close, stroking his back, and made a decision. We couldn't stay in this house any longer. It was unbelievable that someone could threaten with a knife so casually. She didn't even seem human. Until now, I had been swayed by Richard's sweet words after every argument. I used to think I needed to support him, that he would fall apart without me, but I had reached my limit. Above all, I had to protect my crying son in my arms. I couldn't raise him in this house. I decided to leave the next day. In the morning, my stern-faced mother-in-law spoke to me. Emily, get ready for my husband's memorial service next week. All our relatives will be there, so everything must be perfect. Without waiting for my reply, she left for a neighbor's house. Next week was my father-in-law's memorial service. Richard and my mother-in-law had been planning a big feast and reminiscing about him. I was supposed to handle all the preparations, but I wasn't listening anymore. As soon as they left, I quickly packed our things and fled my in-laws' house. I didn't have much, just clothes, my son's toys, and diapers. When I got back to my parents' house, they were surprised. But when I told them everything, my mother cried and hugged me tightly. My usually calm father was very angry and told me to rest at home. That evening, the phone rang. It must have been Richard, wondering why I hadn't returned to make dinner. Ignoring the call and blocking his number was a good move to protect myself and my son. The next day, my mother-in-law and Richard showed up at my parents' house together, banging on the door early in the morning. My parents tried to send them away, but I decided to let them in. As soon as I opened the door, they started shouting. How could you leave without a word? What kind of wife does that? It's strange to just disappear like that. Please, let's not shout. You're disturbing the neighbors, I said calmly, holding back the urge to point out who the real problem was. When they tried to grab me, my father stepped in. We'll call the police if you resort to violence. Let's talk inside first with my parents present. he said firmly. Once inside, I initiated the conversation with my mother-in-law and Richard. "Why did you leave without saying anything?" Richard asked. "I was overwhelmed with childcare and my job, and yet you never helped despite my pleas." "Well, I was busy," he replied. "Busy at the casino," I pointed out. "Like I've already said, our son doesn't go to the casino." "Stop spreading lies," Richard insisted, while his mother seemed to still believe he was working. It seemed she thought highly of him and couldn't imagine otherwise. "Mother-in-law, where do you think Richard is employed?" I asked. "At a securities company." "I saw the job offer letter, after all," she replied confidently. "Well, why don't we call them and find out if Richard is still there?" "That would settle it," I suggested. "Oh, wait a minute," Richard stammered nervously. "What's the problem?" "If you're working there, it shouldn't be an issue," I pressed. Ignoring Richard's discomfort, I dialed the securities company on my phone and switched to speaker mode so everyone could hear. I asked if Richard was working there. "That individual resigned several years ago. If memory serves me right, he was with us for just about a month," came the response from the other end of the line. The words from the phone left my mother-in-law speechless. Richard was looking down, his fists clenched. "Did you really quit? Why?" she asked. "Because it was frustrating. Everything was just grunt work, and the boss would yell at me for the smallest mistakes." "It felt like harassment," Richard explained. "Richard, why didn't you tell us what you've been doing since?" I asked. "I'm job hunting," he replied vaguely. "How many years have you been job hunting? You don't seem to be getting any offers. Tell me, how many companies have you applied to so I can verify?" I pressed. "Well, there aren't any good job offers. When a good company comes along, I'll get a job," Richard said confidently. "You seem very confident in yourself. By the way, you're working part-time now, right? How much did you make last month?" I questioned. $700, Richard admitted reluctantly. $700? Didn't you tell me that Emily could only earn $700 and couldn't support herself, so you were the one supporting her? I questioned, realizing that Richard had misled his mother about my income. In reality, as a dental hygienist, I earned at least $2,000. My mother-in-law, now knowing the truth, blushed furiously as she glared at Richard. In response, Richard became extremely angry. "Why do you have to do this? This is all your fault, making me look like a fool," he exclaimed, clearly hurt and embarrassed. He hit the table hard. "You shouldn't reveal things like this in public. It's defamation. If you want to sue, go ahead, but I'll sue you for threatening me with a knife too. Besides, lawsuits aren't free. Do you have the money?" I countered, standing up for myself and refusing to be intimidated. At that, Richard clicked his tongue, likely realizing he had spent all his earnings from the casino. My mother-in-law was in shock after learning the truth about Richard's unemployment. I decided to lay it all out for her. I've been the one earning all our living expenses. When we got married, Richard promised to take care of the housework and childcare instead of me working. But after we got married, he didn't do any of it. That's different from what you heard. It seemed my mother-in-law had simply believed whatever Richard told her. She had gotten upset when I asked for help with the chores and childcare. She even pointed a knife at me and told me to keep quiet and do my housework. I could see her face.
Surprise, just sold the lake house to Amanda's dad for $500,000. Don't worry about the paperwork, I signed for both of us. You never cared about that place anyway. I stared at the message from Michael, my coffee sitting untouched on the desk as I tried to process what he'd done. He'd attached a photo, him grinning in front of my lake house, his arm around a young blonde woman who looked barely 25. My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 38 years old, and today I found out that my husband of 15 years not only has a much younger girlfriend, but also tried to sell my family's lake house to her father. That house had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it in 1962, and I spent every summer there growing up. When my parents died 5 years ago, they left it to me, only me. I took a sip of coffee. Strangely, I felt calm. A couple months ago, this would have wrecked me. But that was before I found lipstick-stained receipts in Michael's coat. Before I noticed money missing from our joint account. Before I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything I feared. Another text came in. Amanda's dad already sent the money. We're thinking of remodeling, maybe adding a pool. Time to bring some youth to the place. I couldn't help but smile a little. Michael was always full of himself. But this? Trying to sell property that wasn't his? That was a new level. Then a message from a number I didn't know. Hi Olivia, it's Amanda. Just wanted to thank you for being so cool about the house. Daddy's super excited to make it our new vacation spot. Michael says you never use it anyway. I saved her number and didn't reply. Instead, I called Thomas Morgan, our family lawyer. Olivia, he answered right away. I was just about to call. I got some odd documents about the lake house. Let me guess, I said, leaning back. A forged signature trying to transfer ownership. Exactly, and not a very good one either. Your husband's no expert in faking signatures. I heard papers rustling on his end. The interesting part, he added, is that Amanda's dad already wired $500,000 into Michael's personal account. $500,000? I asked, already knowing the number. Yes, and since Michael had no right to sell the house and this clearly counts as fraud. He trailed off. What can we do? Well, Thomas said with a hint of amusement, we can tell Amanda's dad right now and start legal action against Michael. Or, I asked. We could wait until they submit the transfer paperwork to the county and let them figure out they've been scammed. Sometimes people learn best when reality hits. I thought of Michael's smug texts, Amanda's clueless message, and all the nights I'd wondered why he'd been so distant. Let's wait, I said. How long do we have? With that amount of money, they'll likely file in the next few days. I looked at a photo on my desk. Michael and I last summer at the lake house. He was smiling, but now it looked fake. Was he already planning this then? Keep me updated, I told Thomas. Thanks. After hanging up, I finally replied to Michael. Congrats on the sale. Hope everything turns out just the way you deserve. He texted right back. Glad you're finally being reasonable. I'll send someone to pack your stuff. I looked around my office at everything I'd built for myself while Michael plotted behind my back. The lake house wasn't just a place, it was history, family, love. And the fact he thought he could just sell it like it meant nothing said everything about who he really was. Another text buzzed in. Michael says we should throw a housewarming party after the reno. You're totally welcome to come if you want. I put the phone down without replying. Let them have their party. Let them plan. The real surprise was coming, and this time, I'd be the one watching it unfold. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. I'd had this office view for 10 years, ever since I started my own practice. Michael once called it a waste of money, said my clients didn't care about the view. But I cared, just like I cared about the lake house, about family, about respect. My phone lit up with a message from Thomas. They just submitted the paperwork to the county. Should take about 48 hours. I smiled as the sunset painted the sky in warm colors. In 2 days, Michael would realize what he'd really done. And I'd be right here, watching everything fall apart. For him. Because sometimes, the best revenge is just letting people deal with the mess they made. 2 days passed at an agonizingly slow pace. I kept my phone close, waiting for the inevitable explosion that would come when Michael discovered his mistake. Each hour brought new messages from him and Amanda, filled with renovation plans and thinly veiled jabs about updating the old place. The call came at 3:47 p.m. What the hell is this? Michael's voice crackled through my speaker. All pretense of civility gone. The county just rejected the transfer. They're saying I had no right to sell the property. I settled into my office chair, enjoying the panic in his voice. Oh, that's strange. Did they say why? Don't play dumb, Olivia. They said the house is solely in your name. That's impossible. We're married. Everything is joint property. I could hear Amanda in the background, her voice high and worried, asking what was wrong. Not everything, Michael. The lake house was inherited from my parents. It was never in your name. You knew, he accused. You knew and you let me sell it anyway. Correction. I let you try to sell it. There's a difference. I kept my voice calm, professional. By the way, how's Mr. Anderson taking the news? The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Michael spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. He's threatening legal action. Says if he doesn't get his money back immediately, he's going to the police. Well, that's unfortunate, I replied. Especially since you've already spent some of that money, haven't you? Another pause. I could almost see him pacing, running his hands through his graying hair the way he did when things spiraled out of his control. How did you know that? The same way I know about the apartment you leased for Amanda 3 months ago, and the jewelry you bought her, and the weekend trips to Miami. I let each revelation land like a hammer blow. I'm not as oblivious as you thought, Michael. You had me followed. His indignation would have been amusing if it weren't so hypocritical. Let's call it due diligence. Now, I assume Mr. Anderson will want his $500,000 back rather quickly. I don't, he started, then stopped. I can't pay it all back right now. In the background, I heard Amanda's voice rise in pitch. What do you mean you can't pay it back? Daddy's going to be furious. I waited, letting them argue for a moment before speaking again. You know, fraud charges are serious, Michael. Forging signatures, selling property you don't own. That could mean jail time. You wouldn't, he said, his voice wavered. I wouldn't have to do anything. Mr. Anderson seems perfectly capable of handling that himself. The sound of a door slamming came through the phone, followed by Amanda's voice growing distant, calling for her father. Michael's breathing had grown heavy, panicked. Olivia, please, we can work something out. I'll move out, give you whatever you want in the divorce. Just help me fix this. I thought about all the times I caught him in small lies over the years, how he'd always managed to talk his way out of them. Not this time. You know what's interesting? I said, keeping my tone conversational. When you were so busy planning your new life, you forgot to check whose name was on the deed. Just like you forgot to check whose name was on the investment account you used for Amanda's apartment. What are you talking about? The account you emptied last month? It was in my name too. Every withdrawal, every transfer, it's all documented. Mr. Anderson might be interested in seeing those records. You're bluffing, he said, but I could hear the fear creeping into his voice. Am I? Check your email. I just sent you copies of everything. Bank statements, transfer records, even some interesting text messages between you and Amanda from 6 months ago. I'm sure her father would find those enlightening. The sharp intake of breath told me he was reading them now. How did you get copies? Let's just say I learned from your mistakes, Michael. I learned to document everything. The sound of another door opening came through the phone, followed by a man's angry voice. Mr. Anderson, I assumed. Michael's next words came in a rush. I have to go. We're not done talking about this. Actually, I said, I think we are. Good luck with Mr. Anderson. I hear he has an excellent lawyer. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, feeling lighter than I had in months. Through my office window, I could see storm clouds gathering on the horizon, appropriate weather for the storm Michael had just walked into. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Mr. Anderson's lawyer just called. They're pursuing criminal charges unless full restitution is made immediately. I smiled, typing back, keep me updated. I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting. Looking at the family photo on my desk, taken at the lake house last summer, I finally saw what I should have noticed months ago. While Michael was looking at the camera, his smile forced and distant, I was looking at the horizon, already moving toward a future that didn't include him. The fallout was swifter and more devastating than even I had anticipated. By evening, Mr. Anderson had marched into the police station, files in hand, ready to press charges. Michael's desperate calls kept coming, each one more panicked than the last. Please, Olivia, he begged during his 6th call. Anderson's serious about pressing charges. I could go to jail. I sat on the lake house dock, my feet dangling over the water, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold. That's generally what happens when you commit fraud, Michael. I'll do anything, he said. I'll give you full ownership of everything in the divorce. Just help me fix this. I couldn't help but laugh. Full ownership? Of what exactly? The house you tried to sell is already mine. The investment account you drained was in my name. What exactly are you offering? His silence spoke volumes. That's what I thought, I continued. By the way, Amanda stopped by earlier. What? The panic in his voice rose. Why? To apologize, actually. Seems her father showed her all the evidence, including those texts where you promised to leave me 6 months ago. She was quite shocked to learn you'd been lying to her too. The truth had hit Amanda hard. She'd arrived at the lake house in tears, mascara streaking down her face. He told me you were separated, she'd sobbed. He said you were just staying together for appearances. I'd made her tea, let her cry it out. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people see the truth for themselves. Amanda's gone. Michael's voice cracked. Back to her father's house. She mentioned something about focusing on her career instead of lying older men. Her words, not mine. The sound of something breaking came through the phone, followed by muffled cursing. Mr. Anderson's lawyer called, I said conversationally. They're willing to drop the criminal charges if you repay the full amount within 48 hours. Generous of them, don't you think? You know I can't get that kind of money that quickly. Actually, you can. Sell your beloved boat. Liquidate your retirement account. Sell those ridiculous collector cars you bought last year. It might be just enough. Another crash, followed by heavy breathing. You're enjoying this, aren't you? No, Michael, I'm not enjoying it. I'm just finally seeing you clearly. I ended the call and looked out over the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the evening sky like a mirror. My grandfather used to say still waters run deep, meaning the quietest people often have the most powerful thoughts. He would have appreciated how this played out. Over the next week, I watched through my lawyer as Michael scrambled to gather the money. He sold his prized possessions, emptied his accounts, even borrowed from friends. In the end, he managed to repay Mr. Anderson just hours before the deadline. The divorce proceedings were remarkably straightforward. Michael, humbled and exhausted, didn't contest anything. He signed the papers without argument, giving me everything I asked for, not that there was much left to give. The last time I saw him was at the courthouse. He looked older, defeated, his designer clothes replaced by off-the-rack basics. I never meant for it to go this far, he said quietly. You never meant to get caught. I corrected him. There's a difference. He nodded, shoulders slumping. The lake house, it really was beautiful. I should have appreciated it more. You should have appreciated a lot of things more, Michael. As he turned to leave, he paused. What will you do now? I smiled, thinking of the renovation plans I'd already drawn up for the lake house, not to modernize it, but to restore it to its original glory, the way my grandfather had built it. I'm going to keep building the life I deserve, I said. And this time, I'm doing it my way. The following weekend, I hosted a family reunion at the lake house. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all the people Michael had gradually pushed away over the years. We shared stories about my grandfather building the place, about summers spent swimming and fishing, about the legacy that had almost been lost. Standing on the dock that evening, watching the kids play in the water while the adults gathered on the porch, I felt a profound sense of peace. The house was full of laughter again, full of life and love, the way it was always meant to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Final divorce papers are filed. It's officially over. I looked out over the lake, at the future stretching before me like the endless horizon. No, I thought, it's just beginning. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. Free to live authentically, free to honor your legacy, and free to build something better from the ashes of betrayal. The lake house stands as a testament to that truth. Not just a house, but a home. Not just a property, but a legacy. And not just a victory, but a new beginning. You don't belong in this family, Margaret yelled as she threw my handmade birthday gift for my husband into the trash. My son could have married someone rich, someone important, but instead he chose you, a nobody. I stood in her spotless kitchen, my hands shaking but my voice firm. I love James, and he loves me. That should be enough. My name is Isabella Martinez. I was 29 and had been married to James for 3 years, but his mother still looked down on me. No matter what I did, being a teacher, learning their family traditions, or just trying to be kind, it was never enough. She especially hated that I came from a hard-working Mexican immigrant family. Margaret crossed her arms. Love isn't enough. This family has standards. You'll never truly be one of us. Then she picked up the glass angel I had made for James and dropped it into the garbage disposal. The sharp sound of it breaking made my heart ache, but I refused to cry. Next week is our family portrait, she said coldly. Try to wear something decent this time. Before I could answer, my little nephew Tommy ran in. Auntie Bella, can we play trucks? His bright smile broke the tension. Of course, Mio, I said, smiling back. Margaret frowned at my use of Spanish, but Tommy didn't notice. Just then, James walked in. He glanced at the broken glass. Then at his mother's stiff posture and my clenched fists. What's going on? He asked. Just helping Isabella understand how things work in this family, Margaret said smoothly. Oh, and I've arranged for a stylist to pick a proper dress for her for the gala tomorrow. James hesitated but forced a smile. That's thoughtful, Mom. He always tried to keep the peace, stuck between his love for me and his mother's disapproval. Later that night, as we drove home, he squeezed my hand. She'll come around, he said. She just needs time. But it had been 3 years and nothing had changed. In fact, it had only gotten worse, especially after we told her we were trying for a baby. A child needs a proper upbringing, she had said. With the right values. She didn't think my values were good enough. The next morning, I was outside pushing Tommy on the swing while Margaret hosted her garden club. James was inside with his father. Higher, Auntie Bella. Tommy giggled. Across the yard, I heard Margaret's voice. It's a shame. James could have married Caroline Prescott. Instead, he brought home, well, I ignored her, focusing on Tommy's laughter. His love made Margaret's cruelty easier to bear. Watch me jump. Tommy suddenly shouted. Before I could stop him, he leaped off the swing at its highest point. Time slowed. He was too high, too far. Without thinking, I lunged forward and caught him just before he hit the ground. We crashed down hard. Pain shot through my back, but I held him tight. As we rolled to a stop, I heard Margaret scream. Someone call an ambulance. Tommy was crying but safe. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Everything hurt. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Margaret's face, filled not with anger, but something else. Fear? Worry? As I lost consciousness, I heard her whisper, "Hold on, Isabella. Please hold on." When I woke up, hospital machines beeped around me. James was holding my hand, his face pale with worry. "Bella," he whispered, "thank God." I tried to squeeze his hand, but nothing happened. I couldn't move. Fear filled me as I realized the truth. What I didn't know was that this moment, this sacrifice, would change everything, especially Margaret's heart. The first month after the accident was a blur of doctors, tests, and hard news. My spine was badly injured, and the doctors said I might never walk again. I might never hold my future children. I might never return to my classroom full of excited first graders. You saved his life, the doctors told me about Tommy. If you hadn't caught him, they didn't have to finish. I knew what could have happened. James stayed by my side, barely sleeping, fighting with insurance companies, searching for treatments. But I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of it all pressing down on him. Margaret came too, but she wasn't the same. She didn't make sharp comments or look at me with disapproval. She just sat there, watching, listening. One afternoon, as I struggled in therapy to pick up a small ball with my weak fingers, Margaret appeared in the doorway. She looked different, smaller, less sharp. "Tommy asks about you every day," she said, stepping inside. "He wanted me to give you this." She placed a crayon drawing in my lap. A stick figure labeled me standing next to another labeled my hero auntie. I stared at it, wishing I could hold it properly. "How is he?" "Physically, he's fine. But he's having nightmares. He keeps saying he's sorry." My heart ached. It's not his fault. He's just a little boy. Margaret hesitated, her hands trembling. No, it wasn't his fault. She swallowed hard. "I've been thinking about what you did. You didn't even hesitate. You just acted to save him." "He's family," I said. Margaret flinched as if the word had struck her. She opened her mouth to say something more, but then James arrived with my lunch. "Mom," he looked surprised. "I didn't know you were coming today." "I was just leaving," she said quickly. But at the door, she turned back. Isabella, thank you. For my grandson. It was the first time she had ever thanked me. After that, Margaret changed. She visited often, not just for a few minutes, but for hours. She watched my therapy, took notes, even scolded a nurse for being too rough. This is my daughter-in-law, she said sharply. Be more careful. Daughter-in-law, not just James's wife or that girl. The words meant something. One day, after a frustrating therapy session where I couldn't even hold a cup, Margaret did something I never expected. She pulled her chair close and took my hand, the one I couldn't feel. You know, she said softly, when James was little, he struggled to ride a bike. People told me to let him give up, but I knew he needed to keep trying. So every day we went outside. Every day he fell. And every day we got back up. She squeezed my hand. You're going to get back up, Isabella, and this time I'm going to help you. I looked at her, searching for the woman who had once thrown my gift away, but she wasn't there anymore. Why? I whispered. Why now? Margaret was quiet for a long time. Then she said, barely above a whisper, because I was wrong. I thought family had to look a certain way, but I was blind to what was right in front of me, someone who would sacrifice everything for one of us. Tears filled my eyes. I might never walk again. Then we'll face that together, she said. As a family. For the first time since the accident, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. 6 months passed, marked by small victories and crushing setbacks. Against all odds, feelings started returning to my upper body, though my legs remained stubbornly unresponsive. Every tiny improvement felt like a miracle. The first time I could feed myself, hold a phone, hug Tommy when he visited. Margaret became my unexpected champion. She transformed her pristine garden room into a state-of-the-art rehabilitation space, hiring the best physical therapists in the country. The woman who once criticized my every move now celebrated each small triumph as if it were an Olympic achievement. Look what Isabella did today, she'd announce proudly to anyone who would listen, showing videos of me managing to brush my own hair or sign my name. The garden club ladies who once whispered behind their teacups now brought casseroles and offered encouragement. One afternoon, as I struggled with my exercises, Margaret sat beside me looking through old family albums. I found something, she said, turning the book toward me. There was a photo of a young woman in a wheelchair, smiling brightly despite obvious challenges. This was my grandmother. After polio, they said she'd never leave her bed. She proved them wrong. I stared at the photo, seeing the same determination in the woman's eyes that I felt in my heart. You never mentioned her before. No, Margaret admitted softly. I think I was ashamed of how our family treated her. How I treated you. She closed the album, meeting my eyes. But she never gave up, and neither will you. That conversation changed something fundamental between us. Margaret began sharing more family stories, not just the polished society tales she'd once prized, but the real human stories of struggle and resilience. She even asked about my own family's history, listening intently as I told her about my parents' journey from Mexico, their sacrifices, their strength. Then came the day that changed everything. I was working with my physical therapist when I felt it, the faintest twitch in my toe. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, but no, there it was again. Margaret. I called out, my voice shaking. Look. She rushed over, and together we watched as I managed to move my toe just slightly. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but it was movement. It was hope. Margaret burst into tears, pulling me into a careful hug. I knew it, she whispered. I knew you were stronger than anyone thought. The doctors called it a miracle. Slowly, painfully, I began regaining movement in my legs. Each step in my recovery was met with fierce determination and unwavering support from my newfound ally. The woman who once thought I wasn't good enough to join her family now proudly told everyone about her extraordinary daughter-in-law. 1 year after the accident, I stood, shakily but standing, in the Wilson family garden. The same garden where everything had changed. Tommy, now 5, held my hand while James supported me on the other side. Ready for the family photo, Margaret called, setting up the camera. But I'm still in braces, I said, gesturing to my leg supports. Margaret walked over and straightened my collar with gentle hands. Yes, and they show exactly who you are. A fighter, a protector, a true Wilson. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Now, let's show everyone what real family strength looks like. As we gather for the photo, I realized something profound. The accident hadn't just changed my body, it had transformed our entire family. Margaret's perfectly manicured facade had cracked, revealing a deeper, more authentic love. My struggle had become our struggle, my victories our victories. Today, I still face challenges. Some days are harder than others. But now when I look in the mirror, I don't see someone who's not worthy. I see someone who proved her worth not through social status or traditions, but through unconditional love and sacrifice. And Margaret, she's the first to remind me of that. Every morning when she comes to help with my therapy, she greets me the same way. Good morning, my brave, beautiful daughter. Sometimes the greatest healing isn't physical at all. Sometimes it's the healing of hearts that were broken long before any bones. And as for being worthy, well, as Margaret now likes to say, true worth isn't about where you come from or what you can do. It's about who you are when it matters most. I guess sometimes it takes losing the ability to stand to help someone else finally see you standing tall.